Well, we're back and better than ever. Rick Stroud, Steve Versnick. How was your vacation?
I'd say, did you miss us? But we hadn't podcast out.
Well, we did.
Although yesterday morning, Apple Podcast decided to not drop the podcast, but
can't control that.
Yeah, we can't. And we were not the only podcast. I was looking online and lots of people complaining that there must have been a glitch in the Apple whatever system, but the podcast was available everywhere else. So if it's not on Apple Podcast one morning when you're looking for it, go to Spotify, iHeart, go to Pocket Cast, Overcast, all the podcast apps, or even YouTube. We're there. We're everywhere. So
even now and then you'll see it on TampaBay.com.
Yeah, well, it should be there every day, but
right. Well, I can't.
But we don't control that again.
No, you go at our timeline. We usually retweet it or something, but whatever we can do. But yeah, man. I'll say this: the Rays are playing a lot better since we last talked.
Well, we talked about they had a 9-game homestand. You had to go 6-3. You had to 2-1 in each series. If you could go 7-2, it would be fantastic. They went 7-2.
They sure did, man.
And that was after losing the first one, where you're like, "Here we go again."
Can't win it. Can't win at Steinbrenner. I'd say that curse is pretty much lifted. Maybe they just needed it to, get a little warmer. And when I say warmer, I mean like 100 degrees. I mean the heat index out there, man. It holds a little over 10,000.
10,046 is the official capacity.
Yeah, I think maybe 2 of the last 3 days they did not have sellouts. I got a good reason why. It's nuclear hot out there. Oh my goodness! But
it is, and the Twins aren't a big draw either. But
they're not.
And a 9-game homestand, that's always tough. Like 9 straight games for fans to go, but
couple afternoon days in there.
Yeah. But yes, it was very hot on Wednesday.
But no, they're playing much better. I got a theory. I mean, look, when you're talking about the Rays, it always starts where? Pitching and defense, right? That's their staple, and they have really pitched very well through this streak here at home. And Rasmussen is damn near unhittable, I think he gave up 9 hits in his last 3 starts. He's gone 6 innings. He gave up maybe 1 run no runs the whole time. So he's on fire. He's the way he's pitching is tremendous. And then their defense is just really, really good. You don't think of like that. Maybe they don't have a Kevin Kiermaier, right? Obviously they've got Taylor Walls and some outstanding infielders, but not too many Gold Glovers, right? Third base is okay with Caminero, but they're playing really well. And there's a reason for that. They really work on it. They do it every afternoon. I've not seen, of course, I'm not around a lot of major league teams, but when you watch them go out in the afternoon and Kevin Cass just drill balls at them in the infield, it's pretty impressive. And they do it every day. And they're out there for a while. It's not just a token thing. So they're playing great defense. They're pitching extremely well. They don't have to score a lot of runs when they don't allow any runs, and that's always been kind of the Rays' way. But, Josh Lowe comes back. It lengthens the lineup, and Brandon Lau's on fire. And this is what he's so capable of doing. Like, he will get into these grooves and can literally carry your ball club for a month, And all of a sudden at Steinbrenner, which has not happened for them, the ball's leaving the yard, wicked far. So they're hitting home runs, and that they have not done much of that at home. So it just looks totally different when, your pitching is stellar, and you're jumping out to some leads, and you're kind of like, as they say, passing the baton. But there's really, it's been a nice stretch for them offensively. But Lowe made a big difference coming back. And I think it helped. I think it helped Brandon. It helped take some of the pressure off him. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, when you're the guy, right? Sure, if you get something for Caminero and you're thinking he's an outstanding rookie, but he's a rookie, and he's going to go through some glitches. You lost 4 of your outfielders. You're playing with a bunch of guys that didn't start the season in the big leagues, and so where are you getting your offense from? But you get your guy back, and then all of a sudden it's working. And I mean, those are the guys that are carrying them right now.
No question about it. I mean, we know when Brendan Lau gets hot, he can carry the team.
Mm-hmm.
and it's contagious. He had another one on Wednesday. Had a rough night Tuesday. I thought should have been on second base on a play, and then ended up getting hit in the double play, and then had the error as well. It took a bad hop, and so then that messed up the throw. I mean, it happens, but but beyond that, I mean, through this homestand, Brendan Lau was incredible. Josh Lowe being back, as you said, just lengthens the lineup. It really is what it does.
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden, Caminero on Wednesday's batting fifth because you have a little more length in your lineup.
Oh, yeah.
Because you started with Lowe and then Lau and then Diaz and then Aranda, so you can move Caminero down, and he hits a home run. It just there's that
the
lineup.
Final thing, though, and maybe that we should have started here, or I should have started here. The biggest, they have a catalyst. Chandler Simpson, man, is just a problem for teams.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. And if you don't think that speeds up some pitchers when he's on base, if you don't think it kind of preoccupies them, it absolutely does. And I think he has 15, 16 steals by now. But the surprising thing is just his ability to put the ball into play. He's played a pretty good outfield when called upon. He's had to play different positions, but he's doing things. I saw a stat, and I wish I had it in front of me. I should have for this podcast. But he's doing things in his first. I don't know. They had like 35 games or whatever it was, that some of which has not been done. Right, like between the combination of batting averages, stolen bases, on base percentage, stuff like that. And when you start talking about things no one has done or very few players have done, now it's a small sample size, but everybody comes to the big leagues the same way. And he has really been that spark, for their offense that gets guys into scoring position. This Rays team runs the bases very well. Now you mentioned bad base running, and they've had that before, of course. I don't think they're as bad as I've seen them in the past. I don't see them just blindly running into outs that often. It happens, and it's always bad when it does at a major league level. But I think they take extra bases, and it's not just Chandler that's stealing bases. It's a lot of guys. They got a lot of guys that can steal bases.
They lead the American League in steals. I mean,
yeah. And so when you have that kind of ability, one guy gets on and then he's in scoring position 2 pitches later. Like, that's a huge deal, right? That's a huge deal. So for a team that, isn't going to, bash their way through the American League with home runs, this is sort of how they pieced it together. And I got to tell you, it looked pretty dark and scary there for a while, especially the way they were playing at home. You can't lose 9 of 11 at home when the back end of your schedule is mostly road games. But they have not panicked. They've gotten some players back, and now they have too many outfielders. When these guys start coming off the IL, they're going to have to make some decisions here pretty soon. But yeah, you just they're playing really good baseball, and they took advantage finally of what is going to be their longest home series the remaining of the season.
Yep. Well, they didn't have an error in 7 games until the Lau one on Tuesday night.
Outstanding. I mean,
they were turning double plays and just playing outstanding defense.
Yeah.
And the pitching was good. I mean, Rasmussen, what now? It's 3 straight starts of 6 innings scoreless.
6 innings, no runs. I mean, that is quite a streak. And he's efficient with the 6 innings too. He's not out there long, and in this heat, that's great. It's great for your defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But here they are, having said all of that, and with this win streak. What are they? 2 games over 500? 1 game? 2 games?
1 game over 500. But considering where they were,
no question. It's a huge improvement, and you're in second place, I believe, in the American League East.
Yes, you're 6.5 games behind the Yankees, though.
Yeah,
and the hard part is you're sitting there at a game out or a game above 500, 6.5 out. You're 2 games out of the wild card at this point. And granted, it's early. We're still in May.
Or just cross Memorial Day, yeah.
But you have a lot of road games to play.
You do.
And that's where you're still under 500 at home by just a game now. I mean, you're close, but
yeah,
that's where it's going to be. They're going to have to start. They're going on the road now. They're in Houston starting tonight.
Right.
Like, they're going to have to play better They've got a winning record on the road, but they're going to have to sustain this on the road.
They have to, yeah.
Because this first part of the schedule where they've played a ton of home games, 34, 35 of them. So you almost half your home games are done.
That's crazy, isn't it? And it's just past Memorial Day.
Correct. So almost half your home games are done, and you are a game below 500 at home. That means on the road, you're going to have to play above 500.
Above it,
and keep playing that way.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I think you're 10-8. You've only played like 18 road games.
Yeah.
Now it's going to pick up because once you get to July and August, there's 16 home games.
That's in 2 months' time?
Correct. There's a span of 29 out of 38 on the road.
Oh my God.
And then there's another, it's a ton of road games in July and August. And it's West Coast for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well,
Anaheim,
this next trip,
Seattle,
they're all over the place. I mean, I think they go to Houston and they end up pretty much out west.
They go to Houston, then they're back home.
Oh, they come back home. Okay.
They come back home to face the Rangers and Miami.
Oh, okay.
Then they go to Boston and New York for the Mets, that is.
I got you.
Yeah, June is pretty typical. It's like a week at home, week on the road, a week at home, week on the road. It's once you get to July.
July and August,
So once you get to July 4th, that's where you start your 29 days, 29 games in 38 out of 38. From July 4th to August 17th, you have 8 or 9 home games.
Yeah. It's brutal. And travel is not, look, no one cares, right? They have chartered flights. They have 6-star hotels. Somebody carries their bags to the room. Like it's not like you or I traveling, but we're also not playing, till 2:00 in the morning, getting back to a hotel and then maybe have a day game the next day and it's got to be at the ballpark at 11 a.m. Like you do that enough times. And if you're gone for, 6, 7, 8, 10 days and you're covering that many miles and that many time zones, it's exhausting. It just is. And I don't care if you're playing baseball or you're going, to watch baseball, or do what I do or anything. It's just travel is hard. Again, not as hard as if you're going through TSA and all of that. But, there is, I think, a definite home field advantage in baseball, mostly in sports, but certainly baseball when you play that many games. So yeah, they're gonna have to be a great road team. But you know what? Pitching and defense should travel. It should work anywhere. To be quite honest with you, it's just whether or not they can get the offense going and stay consistent. And look, we still haven't heard. I think Sham McClanahan. I think I saw where he's playing long toss somewhere.
Yep.
They still have some other guys that can come off the IL and maybe help them.
Well, they're supposed to get Kevin Kelly back this weekend.
Kevin Kelly is huge for them, although the bullpen's been pretty solid. But he certainly is one of their very best. So
Hassan Kim is on rehab now.
That's the one I'm waiting for.
Jake Mangum is Johnny DeLuca.
Johnny DeLuca, yeah.
He's been moved to the 60-day IL. The first he could come back is June 6th, but he's had a setback.
Yeah.
So he's no longer on his rehab assignment.
Yeah.
Hassan Kim, Jake Mangum.
I don't know what's going on with him, but he's out. So, outfield wise, I think they got plenty of depth there. They'll be okay. But you might eventually. You mentioned the shortstop. I mean, offensively is where I think that you talk about lengthening the lineup. Obviously, Taylor Walls is the best defender they have on the field, but even though he drove in some runs over this homestand, you'd love to see another bat in the lineup. Like they might be able to get. So, I mean, that's their hope. I mean, do I think that they're going to win 95 games? No. Somewhere over 500. Do they get to 88 and make a wild card? I mean, you just got to get in the tournament, right? And then they, of course, bowed out pretty quickly the last few years. But this pitching is pretty special. Like I think they have the makings of a pretty, because some of these guys we haven't seen. Like Shane Baz started the season red hot. He was 3-0. They're talking about him on MLB Network as an all-star, and the most dominant pitcher in the American League, this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, it went to crap. And, he started getting behind hitters and pitch count went up and wasn't able to get through 4 or 5. And his last outing was really pretty good. So, but you got young guys that, are still sort of figuring it out, but man, they have great arms, and if some of those guys lock in like Boz, I mean, you just have the makings of a really good young pitching staff and a pretty solid bullpen. So, I mean, I would feel good that they're going to have a chance. Like the only guy like Taj Bradley has had this thing where he gives up runs early in games. Run in the first, two in the second, or
I think
two in the first.
like I heard like 12 of 30 runs he's given up or something in the first inning.
Yeah, it's insane. Like it's like a thing now. But then he settles down, and the other day, he gave them a good chance to win. I mean, after the first inning and they were down a couple runs, but other than that, like every guy that they run out there keeps you in games and doesn't allow, and they've had some games where, the bats come alive and they bash you, which is rare for the Rays team to do that. But I think they're a confident group. Like I will say this, because I was over there when they were just kind of floundering a little bit. I've done 2 games this year. But you go in that clubhouse, there's nobody with a long face. Like these guys sort of, maybe it's their fact that they've done this and it's their DNA or whatever. There was frustration for sure, but nobody was panicking. Nobody was like Cash said the other day, pointing fingers or anything like that. Like they kind of they kind of felt like it's going to turn at some point. And there was a lot of new, right? There was a lot of new, and I kind of thought that playing outdoors and playing in Tampa, it sucked that the Trop got ripped apart, but a lot of people complained about that. Hey, outdoor baseball, like that might be invigorating. That might be a rallying cry. That might be kind of cool, for a bunch of guys that have been with the Rays before, and it didn't happen. I don't think I in my mind I allowed for the fact that there's still an adjustment to all of that. Like you're still sort of learning the ballpark, and you know, early on some balls were blowing out that they didn't hit and the other team did, and you gave up some home runs, and just then it becomes a thing, right? 9 out of 11 you've lost at home, and that the schedule is going to turn definitively against you in the later months. And I think guys were pressing. Look, you had a lot of guys that, like I said, didn't start the season in the big leagues. They were up there. I mean, Jake Mangum, comes up what was was Meisner. I think what opening day hits the walk-off home run. Stuff like that was happening, but these are guys learning to play in the major leagues right now, especially the outfield. Chandler Simpson didn't start the year here. You're relying on guys that were not part of your plan when you left spring training. So that took some adjustment, and now I think those guys have settled in. I think they've settled into the ballpark. I think, you're starting to see sort of what they're capable of, and hitting's contagious and all of that. So they look like, but now are they better than the New York Yankees? No, I don't think so. But you're going to have to make the tournament, and you're going to have to face them at some point if you're going to do anything. So I think I give Cash and Neander and those guys credit. Like they were patient. It was tough to. I mean, you sit in those news conferences, and you're like, why can't you win at Steinbrenner? You don't really have any answers for it. But you know you're wasting opportunities because you've had these long homestands. So, but good for them. Like I don't know how long it's going to last. I think they're probably going to finish around 500 for the season. It feels a lot like it did a year ago, where you're a couple games up, couple games down, couple games up. I mean, what was it? They were 36 times or something like that. They touched 500. They could get into that again, or maybe the pitching is as special as it's been the last week or so.
Well, here's one thing about the pitching too, is they've only used 17 pitchers this year.
Yeah.
Which, you have 13 on the roster.
Right.
I mean, they've only used 6 starters, and one of them pitched 1 game, Joe Boyle. The rest of, they haven't had a starter outside.
They haven't missed a turn
outside McClanahan.
Right.
Their starters go every 5 days.
Yeah.
Like they've been consistent. Their bullpen's now 5th in baseball in ERA, I believe.
It's doing well.
The starters are moving up. I think they're 11th, 12th in that range, but
right.
Getting better. Like
they were in the bottom third for a while, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's the pitching is what's held this in the defense as well, but the pitching has really held it in. And, they haven't, knock on wood, whatever, that they, the injury bug hasn't hit them there where they've been
in years past. That's what it did.
Right. Yeah. It's been the same guys going out there every fifth day, and in the bullpen, the same guys you can count on each time. So, it's been that's been refreshing in that, because as much as the outfield's had to play, who's out there today, the pitching staff has been intact, which has been very helpful to this team and why they're back up to second place now.
Yeah. No, hey, good for them. It's certainly much more interesting when they're relevant and they're doing some stuff, and they certainly played pretty good baseball, and they beat a Houston team that they got to go play now on the road, and I don't know how good Cleveland is, the Twins are. I don't think they're a great team, but
they were red hot coming in. I mean, they'd won 12 in a row at one point. It wasn't going into the series 12 in a row, but they started off bad. They got really hot. They're a good team. I don't know if they're great, but they're a good team.
But you've won 4 out of 5 series or something like that, and the one you lost was in Miami, which is where you never lose. You lost 2 out of 3 down there, or it could be like 5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah,
so.
you won the 3 home series against Minnesota, Toronto, Houston. You lost that Miami series. You won the Toronto series. You won the Milwaukee series.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, then you got swept by Philly before that. So yeah,
right. And that was when they were at that 9-11 stretch at home. But so we'll see how they go from here on out. But it certainly has been a nice switch. Not much has happened. I was just watching. It looks like, just to wrap up hockey, it looks like Florida's going back to the Stanley Cup, man.
Yeah, they're leading 3-2 after 2 periods in Game 5, where they could wrap up this series tonight. Edmonton leading 3-1 over Dallas, so it looks like at this point going to be a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, how about
which
that?
Went to 7 games. Florida got off to a 3-0 lead. Edmonton then won 3 straight and went to a Game 7. So and the Lightning had some changes. Well, we had pre-recorded some shows.
Lost some coaches, huh?
Well, Jeff Blashill, assistant coach, former coach of the Red Wings, assistant coach for the Lightning for the last 3 seasons. He is now the head coach at Chicago to help them through that rebuild. He was part of that Detroit rebuild for years. So John Cooper looking for an assistant coach, and Matthew Darsh, assistant GM to Julian Brisebois, is now the general manager of the New York Islanders. So
good for them.
That's both good promotions for both those guys. So he is now the general manager of the Islanders, and Stacey Roost, another assistant GM who was also the general manager of the Syracuse Crunch for the Lightning, no longer with the organization.
Well, that's a curious one, isn't it, when you get that kind of notification?
Well, that could be anything. That could be he's going to work for someone else,
or personal,
and they just haven't announced it yet. Mm-hmm. It could be the team wanted to make a change. It could be just Stacey wanted to change. You just never know. I mean, maybe he's going to work somewhere else. The announcement hasn't come. Maybe he wanted to change. Maybe Julian Brisebois wanted to change, or maybe it was mutual too. When the only thing is that he's not part of the organization, hard to tell what happened there. So, But Syracuse, I mean, he's been the general manager of the Crunch. They've made the playoffs 6 or 7 straight years. Now, there's a few years there was no playoffs, but every time they've had a playoff, they've made it for 6 or 7 straight years. So,
yeah,
kind of curious.
Well, I want to get into the Bucs had a OTAs that we were able to attend, and they've got another one next Tuesday that we will be open to the media, and then it's really just a 2 or 3 day mandatory minicamp at the end of the sort of like the off season, if you will, and then they break, and then when they come back, it's training camp. So we're getting closer and closer to NFL football. My observation about that coming up, but first. Have you guys been to International Plaza? Have you been to Breitling Boutique? You have to go, and you have to go now. Breitling Boutique is, the place where you get the best Swiss watches you can imagine. The Breitling company has been in business for over 140 years. They've been at International Plaza for more than 5 years. Now go to the center of the mall, go upstairs. You're going to find a unique store with terrific customer service to start with. They're used to dealing with professional athletes. You'll probably see a Buccaneer or 2 in there if you shop there, or a Rays player, somebody like that from the Lightning. But they're going to treat you like a celebrity as well. You're going to find out about all their men's watches, the Navatimers, the Chronomat watches, which are known for. And then there's also watches for your wife, for your girlfriend, sports watches in particular. These things are durable. If your wife is on the go like mine is, and she's banging around a lot with the kids and stuff, this is a watch that will hold up and look absolutely beautiful. They got all different kinds of color wristbands. You have to go see our friends at Breitling Boutique. You're going to be happy and get the best timepiece you've ever owned. And they also have been doing a celebration of the NFL's 104th year anniversary. Now, these are limited, but there are 32 NFL team watches, these beautiful chronomat watches that you have to check out. These watches have, of course, the team color in the face of the watch, as well as the logos. You can go on tampabay.com, likely to see the Buccaneers watch. But again, it's while supplies last, but you're a fan of the Bucs or any other team, make sure you go in there, ask them about the NFL anniversary watches, and they will show you what they have. It's Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Make sure when you do go, you tell them that you heard about it right here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, I was out at the Bucs organized team activity on Tuesday, and first of all, my thanks to Josh Grizzard, who sat down with us. We played that podcast. What was it, 2 days ago, Steve? I think.
Yeah, we dropped that on Tuesday, right after the holiday.
Yeah, fascinating guy. And I'll say this: he's a young guy. I think he's all of 34 years old, but his story is really unique. And we've talked about it a little bit before on this podcast. From Lizard Lick, North Carolina, which sounds like something you would make up on a TV series, right? But it's this little town outside of Raleigh, and as you can imagine, when you're growing up in that part of North Carolina, what is king, right? Basketball, right? You're right there. And he grew up, yes, a North Carolina State fan, as was his dad and and everybody in his family. And his thing when he was younger was playing basketball. He was a basketball player. He didn't play football until much later, but he became a quarterback and a good one. And he also was smart. And so he was the valedictorian of his high school class there in Lizard Lick, and got a chance to go to Yale and play football, where he played defensive back. And because he also played that in college, he broke his leg, I think, playing football his senior year, and wasn't able to play basketball. So that was kind of it for basketball. But after spending time there, playing at Yale, it wasn't enough of a challenge academically. He decided, hey, why don't I do a graduate program at Duke, but his real reason for going was because he was interested in coaching football and working under David Cutcliffe, who was the Duke head coach and Peyton Manning's head coach back at Tennessee, or coach at Tennessee. And so, everywhere he's been, he's gained a lot of knowledge. And I don't think there's necessarily a ton of coaches in the NFL that hail from Yale, but this is a really smart young guy, and ended up really with just a grunt job with the Miami Dolphins. And Clyde Christensen hired him, but told him, "Don't take this job. You're going to hate it. I'm just telling you. I will give it to you, but it's not a great job." He took it anyway, and he survived 3 different head coaching changes down there in Miami. That's how good he was at what he was doing, and they wanted to keep him. And then, of course, last year he came up here as their pass game coordinator, was in charge of third downs, and voila, he's suddenly the offensive coordinator. And if he's any good at all, Steve, he'll be the 3rd head coach to be hired from this staff in 3 years. I mean, what a bar set by Dave Canales and Liam Cohen. All you got to do is come in for 1 year and you're a head coach. Boom. But no, I think the continuity, one advantage he has that some others have not had, is that the system itself is not going to change dramatically in terms of terminology, and they sort of know their players now and that sort of thing. But interesting young guy, really fun to sit down and talk with him. If you hadn't had a chance to listen to the podcast, go back and check it out. And we ran that on Monday, I believe, as you said. So that was fun. And then, going out to the OTAs, look, it's kind of like, it's off-season workouts. They're voluntary to the point where until they're not, right? Like, there was probably about 75 players. They got about 90 on the roster right now, I think. Some guys that you're not too surprised to not see like Levante David, right, who's 35 years old and has played 14 seasons. Not a surprise that he wouldn't be there, at least on the day that we were there. Now, we were only there one of the 3 days this week, so we can't really speak for the other ones. But we still look, and no Tristan Wirfs, and Luke Gedeke was working with a trainer, and but you did see Antoine Winfield Jr. You didn't see Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. No real update on him. They say he's on schedule for whatever that means. Baker obviously was there, which was good to see. The guy we didn't see though, and I don't want to make too much of it, but it certainly was a thing, is Hassan Reddick. I mean, Hassan Reddick, new to the team, presumably doesn't know the defense, signed a 1 year, $10 million contract. And at least for the first week or the day we were there, he was not. And Todd Bowles didn't exactly necessarily make it sound like he knew he was coming the next day, because he was like, "Oh, he'll be here at some point, we think." It's like, wait, what? Reminds you maybe of another outside pass rusher that never showed up.
You hate to. I mean,
it's unfair to compare it, but
it is unfair. But Hassan Reddick had holdout issues previously, and
didn't report to the Jets after being traded, right?
Yep. And then so that you're going, okay, so the Bucs took a flyer on him.
Mm-hmm.
He's really the only move you made to help your outside pass rush.
The big move. That was it. I mean, yeah, huge.
And all of a sudden he's not at voluntary OTAs. Now it's voluntary. He doesn't have to be there.
That's right. And other guys were not just him. But he's new to the team. That's the thing that I keep coming back to. Like, if you did sign, if you're, what they said was, and we talked to, we're talking about Reddick. We talked to him when he got here, and he is motivated because, he kind of sees last year as a wash. Prior to that, he had over 50 sacks in 4 seasons, 4 previous seasons before last year, when he only played in like six or 7 games. So, and he's motivated because, he did take a below market contract. I mean, these outside pass rushers with those numbers are getting $30 million. So a motivated Hassan Reddick added to Yaya Diaby and, Chris Braswell and Anthony Nelson and some of these guys, you think, okay, that could be the missing piece. And then he doesn't show. I always think it's funny. Like, we look to see who's there, and then they tell us it doesn't matter if people aren't there. But it's only voluntary to the point that it's not. And you just, you certainly would hope to see him maybe before all these OTAs are over. Now he has to come to the mandatory minicamp. He didn't with the Jets, but I think he was mad that he didn't get a contract extension. So in this case, he looked at all the teams and chose the Bucs. And look, I know that Larry Foote has a good relationship with him. He coached him in Arizona. No one seems very panicked or anything, but once again, you just kind of like to see the guy start working with his teammates and figuring out, what he has to do on this defense. The other thing that showed up, and Todd Bowles made mention of this, well, we watched it ourselves, was, in the rookie minicamp, Jacob Parrish had a couple of interceptions, and he's the kid out of Kansas State that they drafted in the 3rd round. And then you have Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame in the 2nd round. Those 2 guys, you notice when they're on the grass. Like, you just notice. Like, they make plays. They look the part. And they have gotten the attention of Jamel Dean and even Zion McCallum. Had a chance to talk to Zion the other day. And he's their best corner. And it's hard to believe this, but like, Zion's going to be a free agent after this year. Like, he's in that window where he'll be getting a contract extension if he plays anywhere close to the way he did a year ago or better than that. But even for him, of course, Jamel Dean, has missed like 9 games in the last 2 years due to injury, and so he's probably the one that's maybe the most vulnerable of losing his job. But these young corners have gotten the attention of the veterans, including Zion. He says, they brought a lot of energy to their room. And competition is good for any football team, or just in business in general, and it's going to bring out the best in them. And these guys that they brought in Morrison and Parrish, like, they're here they're here to play. Like these dudes expect to play as rookies, and they're out there. In the case of Morrison, like incredibly like prepared, ready to go, from practice. Now, they're trying to help them. The veterans are trying to help the young guys in the room, because at some point, you're going to need them. But it is clear to me that the offseason analysis that Todd Bowles had, and he said he had a eureka moment. I don't necessarily think it's this, or he said it wasn't just that they needed more defensive backs, but I do think that this was what they identified as their biggest problem on defense. They couldn't get off the field. Um, you know, the rush and the coverage has to work together. So if your guys can't cover, then the pass rush isn't going to get there. You need an extra tick, and have guys cover receivers a little bit longer. So I like what they've done. I think these guys are not. I think they're real players, and I think they're flashing because special shows up right away, and I think they've done that. They're students of the game. They're really smart football players, and they went out there and opened some eyes, and that opens the eyes of your veterans. I mean, Jamel Dean is got another year in his contract, but it's not guaranteed, and so he could be done with the Bucs after this season. He's playing for his future. Obviously, Zion McCallum's playing for his future someplace because he's going to be a free agent. So I like the fact that they have those guys, and then you still have plenty of other guys returning too, like Zion McCallum and others, that can play corner. Obviously, Tyke Smith. They're talking about moving to safety. Bull said one thing that caught my attention. Again, getting back to his eureka moment, which he won't share with us what it was that he figured out that he wants to do on defense this year. But one thing that's different is that typically your positions meet separately. The safeties meet with the safeties and their coach. The corners, even their defensive backs, meet with the corners and their coach. This year, even in the offseason, Todd Bowles has the entire secondary meeting together, right? Because you go to position meetings and then you go to the defensive meeting. And he's got the safeties and the corners all meeting together. And furthermore, at one point, we were asking about Zion, and he goes, well, he's, we were like, well, he's the outside, one of the outside corners. He goes, well, he can play anywhere. He can play safety. He can play nickel. He can do a lot of things. He goes, as do all our players. Like, we're going to make sure that all our guys. And it just dawned on me. It's like, wait a minute, Zion at nickel. Like, why would you consider playing him there when he's so good outside? And what I think is Todd Bowles is going to find a way to get his 5 best guys out there, period. Right? Like, they're all fairly interchangeable. Like, Tyke can play nickel, Tyke can play safety. We've seen, obviously Christian Izien play even corner like he did against Detroit last season in a pinch. You've got some really versatile dudes, and because of that versatility, you can disguise a lot of things. You can create mismatches. So, with the young talent they have, like I said, those guys like Morrison and Parrish, they're here to play. And they're going to find a way to get their 5 best defensive backs, which also includes Antoine Winfield Jr., who, looks good, seems to be running really well. And of course, he had a series of injuries last year that just, held him to 9 games. Really was never himself. But a healthy Antoine Winfield Jr. with anybody at safety gives you a lot of confidence. So I think this defense, while linebacker to me is still the big question, right? Oh, and by the way, Servafier Dennis in the first OTA that we saw, interception over the middle of the field, pick 6, as a matter of fact. So, he's got great range in coverage, and he showed that before he got hurt. So hopefully that shoulder now's had surgery, it's been repaired, and he can stay healthy, and that's going to be a key because there's very little depth, although Anthony Walker Jr. is here, and he's played a lot of football, as is Deion Jones. So it's not a total lost cause at the linebacker position. Did not see Lavonte David, not surprising. Again, he's 35, doesn't need to be here, but I just think they're going to be better on the back end on defense for sure, and probably a little bit better in the middle of the field. I mean, playing. No offense to Josh Hayes and some of those guys, but that's not NFL caliber. When you lose a corner to have to come in with somebody like Josh. And um, again, I just think they've gotten much better. It clearly was a big identifier in terms of need. That's why they took them in the third and fourth rounds, and or second and third round. I'm sorry, second and third rounds. So yeah, that was kind of interesting just to see the play there, and they got another week of OTAs, and then I think the mandatory minicamp is the 10th through the 13th of June. So after that, man, that's it until training camp. It'll be about 5 weeks, and then when we start, it's all the way through. I get to this point, Steve, where it's like, okay, it's almost done. The off season is almost done. It's an eternal off season. You get done playing 2 weeks after the Super Bowl. It's combine. Then you get ready for free agency. Then it's the draft. Then it's rookie minicamp. Then it's OTAs, and then it's mandatory minicamp. And you're like, okay, this is over. And then boom, like 4 weeks go by or 5 weeks go by. It's like, yeah, you're into the season now. It's just the damnedest thing.
I think I saw over the weekend it's like 14 Saturdays to college football.
That's true. That's fundamentally
means
true.
The NFL's one more week, basically, or
just a week difference, really.
Yeah, I mean, but preseason obviously will be here at the end of July as camps open and stuff. So.
Right. Once camps open, then you have 3 preseason games. There'll be some joint practices and stuff in there.
I think we're less than 100 days to the season opener. The Phillies and what are they? Eagles and Cowboys.
Eagles and Cowboys. Yeah. And I mean, look, football is king. I've covered the sport forever. I love college football. I'm excited for that to come back, and the falls in general. Like if we can get past September and get deep into October, that's when it gets pleasant because the weather might cool down to a balmy 85 degrees. But I'll tell you, man, I don't care what you say. I've lived here my whole life. It's never been this hot. It's just never been this hot. Maybe my tolerance is down as I age. That could be it. But I see why people retire to North Carolina or Maine or something like that. I mean, people from up north come down here, the Canadians and everybody, they're snowbirds. They're only here in the spring when it's really nice down here, January, February, when it's freezing cold up north, and then they go back up north. I think they got to figure it out. It's really hot. I could not believe I was out there the other day. I swear it. If you'd have told me it was August and we were starting camp today, I'd have believed you. Absolutely. That's what it felt like. It was sweltering. The humidity is not quite what it's going to be because we haven't had the thunderstorms at 4:00 that you can set your watch by. So that's not quite there yet. But man, it's going to be brutal this year. And I don't know. They got to be careful. Those guys got to be careful, man. You got guys like Desmond Watson at 400 something pounds. Like, man, make sure those dudes get hydrated, because you can't have injuries, and you certainly don't want to be getting in trouble out there. But it's pretty bad. So what else we got going this week? So the Rays are going to be headed up to
this
Houston,
week. It's already
right?
Thursday, so
well, yeah, it's pretty much over. Yeah, wow.
The Rays are in Houston for a 4-game series starting tonight.
Yeah.
An update on the game we talked about earlier. Carolina actually tied Florida in the third 3-3.
I'm shocked. Yeah,
that series may not be over by the time you hear this podcast. Maybe it will be. Maybe it won't. We'll see.
Yeah,
but it's about halfway through the third, and it's 3-3. So
it was a hell of a goal.
Yeah,
beat him over the right shoulder. That was nice. I still think Florida's the best team I've seen, and it would. And if they get, would you agree they're better than either team in the West right now? Dallas.
I think so. But I think the Edmonton Florida would be a great series. I think Dallas would give them a good series as well too. So
yeah.
Game 5 of that series is tonight
in
Edmonton.
Yeah. Is it me, or does it feel like the Lightning haven't played in like 6 months? I don't know why this offseason.
It's been about a month. I mean, I think it was April. Was it April 30th? I believe. So this is May 29th. So,
God, it's such a long offseason for the NHL, and they're playing every other night. So it's not like they're not playing, but you got to win 16. You got to win 16, not play 16.
Yep.
So,
but I also think if you look at this, and It's extremely disappointing to go out in the first round for the third straight year for the Lightning. No question about it. This year, you felt like you had a better chance than the last two because of the way you played defense all season. You're top 5 team defensively.
Yep.
But when you see what Florida's doing and just how good they are, like you didn't lose out to Montreal or New Jersey.
Yeah,
like, you lost to probably the team that's going to win it.
I would agree.
And they've looked pretty convincing outside the first 2 games against Toronto.
Right.
For whatever reason, they looked awful, and then from then on, they've been playing fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for those that think the Lightning are far away, I don't think they're as far away as you would think just with 3 first-round exits. Now, are they as good as Florida right now? No. And it'll be interesting to see what Julien Brisebois does this offseason. And Florida's going to they're going to lose some players most likely to salary cap considerations at this point. Yeah, they've got some free agents and stuff. So if they want to keep them, they're going to have to get rid of others. So
that's what happened to the Lightning.
Much like the Lightning did after 3 straight cups, had to lose players, including trading Ryan McDonough and stuff.
That's
right. The cap does go up a little bit, but Florida's going to have some casualties with that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting what Julien Brisebois does, what new assistant GMs he brings in, and how that may change things in the organization and kind of their way of thinking and what they do. So it's going to be very interesting what happens this offseason with the Lightning, and then into the season. Camp's going to open mid-September. I believe NHL announced the regular season opens October 7th. So
God,
the schedule won't be out till late June, but they did announce the first day of the season. So,
well, look, time waits for nobody. It'll be here before you know it. My kids will have their final day of school. The final, actually, official day is Friday, but their final day will be today with a couple of tests.
Yep.
And
same with my oldest son. My youngest son will go to school Friday, but
yeah. And every year they say to me, "Gosh, Dad, it went by really fast." It's like, oh, just wait, just wait until you see how fast things go. But yeah, we're almost. I mean, we're into the summer now, and before you know it, it'll be fall, and we'll be talking more NFL football, more Buccaneer football, and Florida Gators, and could be an interesting year in the state of Florida for college football.
Yeah, Florida should be good. USF can, Alex Golesh take that next step now.
Florida State's got to bounce back. They had such a terrible year last year.
And how will Miami, rebound with a new quarterback now with Cam Ward gone? So
they lost Cam, yeah. Very interesting. And Ohio State will be great. Sorry, Michigan. I don't know how that's going to go.
But Ohio State's got to break in a new quarterback.
They do.
So the Big Ten's going to be interesting. Oregon's got to break in a new quarterback. Michigan's breaking in a new quarterback.
Yeah.
Penn State gets their quarterback back.
Penn State may be one of, I don't know.
They're going to be a top 5 team. They're going to be a top 5 team.
They're a top 5 team, yeah.
Yep. Georgia should be good again, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
You're used to Nick Saban, so you didn't make it this year. Oh, they'll make it next year, but it's new coaching staff, so, how will they do?
Man, the NCAA, we'll get into this one day. We'll probably need to have Joey Knight or somebody on, or Matt Baker, to talk about all the changes in college football, but boy, oh boy.
Yeah. Texas will be good again.
Yeah, Texas. Well, and you got Arch Manning. Did I see where pretty much the SEC is just going to succeed them in the Big Ten from the NCAA?
At some point, those two are leaving, and they'll take a few extra schools with them, and
they'll form their own league, basically.
They pretty much are running college football at this point. Anyway,
of course they are. Yeah, they got the biggest TV networks. So yeah, it's a lot of changes going on. I don't know that I do know. I would not want to cover that sport right now because of all of this stuff, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want to coach it. But of course, there's a lot of rewards. Obviously, there's a lot of guys that make a ton of money and stuff doing that.
And the Panthers just went up 4-3 with 7:39 to go in the third.
As we're talking, it's kind of the deals they made. Of course, was it Verhaeghe or Barkov that scored?
I believe it was
Barkov. The deals they made with Marchand and Jones, though, I thought those have been huge for them.
No, it was Verhaeghe. It was assist from Barkov. So
it was Verhaeghe. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that was one that got away. Talk about salary cap and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You
don't hit on them all.
No, that's true. Been a pretty good player for Florida, though. All right. Well, we'll be back again to wrap up the week. You can get your mailbag questions in if you got them. We're always open to that. I've had a few, even though we've been away, not from a podcast standpoint, but from doing some daily shows. But you can do that. Send us to us on Twitter or X at NFL Stroud or at SportsDayTV, or my email address is rstroud@tampabay.com. Great to be back. Thanks for listening, everybody. Go see our friends at Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Check out the NFL collection, all 32 teams, the Navatimers, the Chronomat watches for your wife, your girlfriend, and make sure you let them know that you heard about it right here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. For Steve Versnick, I am Rick Stroud, the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.